So hi everyone, welcome back. Today I'm going to be sharing with you what I feel to be my perfect all-around camera for my kit for both photos and videos as well, which is this guy, the X-T3. So you can stick around to the end of the video for me to explain why I feel like this is the best all-around camera for me, as well as why it might be the best all-around camera for you as well. Before we jump into all of this, I want to make two disclaimers. One is that this is just a camera. It is a tool for you to achieve photos, and depending on how you use it, any camera can be used to achieve good photos. And the second disclaimer is that this is going to be approached from more of a feeling standpoint and more of an experience standpoint rather than a technical standpoint. So there are a lot of videos that are going to go over the specs of the camera, so I won't bother diving too much into that. I'll delve through it really basically, but then after that I'm going to discuss more about how the actual experience of using this camera has been like for me. So overall speaking about this camera, there are tons of cameras that are better performing than this camera and that have better features than this camera. But why do I pick this camera as my best overall camera? Let's have a look. So why would I pick the X-T3 as my all-around favorite camera? So this camera performs really well in terms of the photo side as well as the video side, and we're going to get into a bit more depth into all of that in a bit. However, I feel like for the price, if you can get it secondhand, it is really going to be a bargain as well, as this one body does what I feel to be really good photos and videos. So with this camera, I feel that if I'm going to go out to shoot either portraits, landscapes, street photography, or even if I'm shooting Instagram reels or stuff like that in terms of video, I feel like this camera definitely does the job, and I'll be happy to bring it on all of those shoots, and I can be rest assured that I'm going to be covered in all of the bases that I need to be covered for like 90% of the shoots that I'm going on. Okay, so before we talk about the stuff that's really unique about this camera, I'm going to really quickly go off some of the photo and video aspects of this camera. Okay, so I mainly use this camera for photos, and let's go through some quick fire specs of what this camera actually does, and then I'm going to translate that into what it actually means in terms of the image that you're getting back. Okay, so I might have to read this out for you. It is a 26.1 megapixel APS-C X-Trans BSI sensor. It has 11 FPS with the mechanical shutter. It has really quick autofocus, and the subject tracking on it works really well as well. I find that it sticks most of the time, and even though it might not be as sticky as some of the newer cameras, I feel like if you want to track something on this, it definitely does the job. So another thing about this is that it has Fuji's color science, which we are going to delve a bit deeper in the later part of this video. Okay, and now what all of these specs mean in the actual usage of the camera is that you're going to get sharp photos and you're going to get in-focus photos if you set your camera correctly. Now with the photo side out of the way, let's delve into the video side, which I find this camera to be an absolute powerhouse in. So similarly to the photo side, I'm going to really quick fire all of the video specs that I find are important, and then I'm going to tell you what that actually means in terms of the performance of the camera. And again, let me look at my sheet over here. So it has 4K 60 FPS. It has 10-bit recording at 420 internally. It has Fuji's f-log in it, which is really easy to color grade. And it has 1080p slow-mo at 120 FPS. And the bit rates on this are quite high as well. If you like, you can go to certain other videos or search it up online and you're going to find the exact numbers, but the bit rate is really high on this camera as well compared to its competitors or entry-level cameras. And in a similar fashion for all of this, what this means is that it's going to deliver high quality, sharp videos that are really easy to work with in post. And what I mean by easy to work with is that you are getting 10-bit 420 internal and 422 if you record externally. However, the 420 inside of the camera itself is going to allow you to work with the footage and really be able to mold it together way more than you are going to get with an 8-bit file. So in my experience, working with the 10-bit on this camera has really been quite fun, and it's been allowing me to experiment a bit more with colors because yeah, you just get a lot more information there from what I personally experienced with this camera. Okay, so with the photo and video specs out of the way and how I feel like they perform, I'm going to get into the most important part about this camera in my opinion, which is the handling and the design, or the look and the feel of this camera. Okay, and just by the look of this camera, you're going to be able to see that it looks quite vintage and it looks quite retro. And you can tell that there are not many other cameras on the market that look this good nowadays. And what that translates to me is that it gives this camera personality. The dials on this camera are really clicky as well, and it really just feels good to use. And if you don't believe me, you can listen to this. So yeah, this camera makes you feel like you are part of the process while shooting, because when you adjust your settings, you can adjust the ISO and the shutter speed from the dials above here, and it really makes you feel like you are taking part in the photo as well, instead of just pointing and taking the photo. So I know that there are newer cameras with better autofocus, better dynamic range, and a lot of better features in general, but for me, I love the way that this camera feels in my hands. I love taking it out to shoot, and it makes me want to go out to shoot, because I just feel like I'm having fun with this camera. And yeah, that's what I think it boils down to. This camera makes me want to go out to shoot. When I use this camera, I feel like I'm having fun with the actual shooting process of it, and it's an experience that I don't really get with much other cameras. And the next thing that I'm going to talk about with this camera, which I don't see done as well on many other camera brands, I'm going to call it creative flexibility. So let me elaborate on all of this. So in any video that you're going to see on a Fuji camera, you are going to encounter a segment on all of these videos of people talking about how much they love Fuji simulations, like the film simulations. And it's quite simple why. You just press a few buttons and then you're going to get a look that you really like straight out of camera. And there are a lot of looks, and there are different times that you can apply each of those looks. So it kind of just has a effect of, okay, I see this scene and I feel like it suits this simulation, I'm going to put it on, and then after that I'm going to be able to get JPEGs straight out of the camera that look good and that fit the theme of what I'm trying to portray this scene as. Okay, so when I was doing my research on this camera, to be honest, I kind of brushed it off as kind of a gimmick, all of these film simulations. I thought it was something that wouldn't really look good, and it's kind of like a filter that you just slap on, and most of the time it will look like it's really cheap of a photo. But in my experience, after actually using this camera, I find these film simulations to be a really easy thing to integrate into my shooting if I see a scene that can really have a personality that correlates with the actual film simulations. So to kind of show all of this, here are some of my personal favorite film simulations on this camera, and some examples of when I would use them. One of my favorites, and I would assume a lot of other people's favorites as well, is Classic Chrome. So I use Classic Chrome when I want a bit more of a nostalgic feel, because it has a bit of a desaturated and a bit of a grungy look to it. It has a look similar to older documentary style photos or videos, and I find that it has a really nice vintage look to it, which I feel might capture really good on nostalgic moments or moments that are more gritty. And my second one would be Astia or Astia, however you pronounce it. But yeah, so I would use this on a more nature-esque kind of shoot. So these colors kind of tend to be a bit softer but a bit more vibrant than Classic Chrome. So if I don't want an image which has a grungy feel, and if I want an image with a more soft and gentle look to it, I'm going to choose Astia or Astia to shoot my images. So as my conclusion to all of this, I find that finding a camera that's really good in terms of video and photo might be really hard to find and achieve. However, I find that the X-T3 is a really good companion if you would like to achieve both photos and videos. So this camera makes me want to bring it out to go and shoot, instead of just sitting there and being a nice piece of gear. It allows me to go out and really quickly pump out images using the film simulation. And I feel like something that you can't really easily replicate nowadays with this camera specifically is that it kind of just makes you feel like you want to go out to shoot. And that makes me want to bring this camera everywhere I go. So for me, and for now, the Fujifilm X-T3 is going to be my undisputed favorite overall camera. So that's going to be it for me. Thanks for listening to me talk about the X-T3 and why it's my favorite camera. If you have any questions about this camera, feel free to leave it in the comments, or you can share your thoughts about what your favorite camera is in the comments as well.